gold has been doing really well over the last 2 years. In fact, its recent rally is the strongest in almost 15 years. And one of the questions I'm being asked a lot recently is, hey, Azul, what should I do about gold? Should I invest? So I decided to do a video and I'm going to share with you where gold is at now and why I think it's had this rally over the last 2 or 3 years. And then most importantly, what does it mean to you and I? Okay. So the last big rally before this one was in August of 2011 when gold topped out at almost $2,000 an ounce, $1,920. And the most recent rally hit its peak a couple months ago, and gold almost touched $3,500 an ounce. So, one of the interesting things about gold is if you look at its purchasing power, it tends to do really well. And so I asked AI, you know, how much was college tuition in the United States in 2011? And it turned out an ounce of gold could buy about one-fourth of a year of college tuition, $8,200 a year. So 1 ounce could buy 0.23 years. College is now for a year almost $12,000. So with the current price of gold, it can buy about 0.30 years. So it's actually surprisingly gained on college tuition. And then, as far as average monthly rent, an ounce of gold back then in 2011 could pay for about 2 months of average rent of almost $1,000 a month, and now the average rent is 1,680, and guess what? It pays for 2 months of rent. So what has gold done relative to inflation over the last 15 years? It's done what we think gold is supposed to do, which is keep up with inflation. It's generally considered to be a hedge for inflation. Okay, now why do I think gold has had this recent rally? Number one, obviously, is inflation concerns. We're worried about potentially with the tariff wars and countries, taking down the agreements that have taken us 80 years to build. It could be more expensive for countries to deal with each other, and that could drive inflation. This is not a political channel. I'm not making a political statement here. Okay. The other one that's interesting is that gold demand from central banks from around the world is at an all-time high. Countries like China, India, Turkey, and Russia. And part of what's driving that is countries wanting to reduce their dependency on the US dollar, um, driven in part by what I was talking about earlier, the tariff situation. Okay, geopolitical conflict obviously is huge and increasing. We've got this situation in the Middle East. We've also got Russia and Ukraine war continuing, and it seems like tensions are increasing. And so people sometimes turn to gold for that. The next one is a weakening US dollar. In fact, since the beginning of the year, the US dollar versus a basket of major global currencies has dropped about 10%. And historically, that's a very, very big drop. And so gold is seen as a hedge against potentially a drop in the US dollar. And people are thinking that the Fed may, if the US economy slows down, may start cutting rates to stimulate the economy. And that's one of the things that's driving the price of gold. And then just economic uncertainty. Investors don't like uncertainty. And there's a lot of uncertainty right now with really because of the tariffs. I think that's the one of the biggest and the geopolitical tensions. So how has gold done? Before I share what this means to you and I, let's talk about the price of gold and how it's done since the last big rally that ended in August of 2011 until the peak of the most recent rally, the current rally that we're in, April of 2025. And you can see gold's done pretty well. It started at 1920, and then its approximate level, I used AI for this, is $3,300 an ounce now, and that gives a total return of almost 75%. But here's the thing that's important to remember. What are the other things that we can invest in? So if we look at the S&P 500 over that same time period, the S&P 500 in August of 2011 was about 1,364. The level in April of 2025 was a little over 5,500, 5,569, and that is a 300% increase during that period of time. Now, one of the things that regulators tell financial advisors, and I was a financial advisor for 20 years before I retired, is it's important to share that past performance is not an indicator of future performance. In fact, it's a lousy indicator. However, it's worthwhile to look at it, but not thinking it's going to be predictive, but just to know how did it do. So one of the challenges with gold is how do you value it other than, other people are willing to pay this price of gold. And I think that's one of the reasons that it's kept up with inflation is at some point the world kind of agreed that, this is the price of gold and maybe that was a couple hundred years ago. And during that period it's basically kept up with inflation in part because that's kind of the rule that we've all taught ourselves. So, um Morgan Housel has a book that's called Same as Ever. And so the question is, do we see the role of gold in our future being the same as ever? And if so, should we expect similar returns? Maybe, maybe not. I don't have a crystal ball. I wish I did. The one thing I will say is, as a tool for hedging against inflation, it seems like a lot of people, particularly younger people, are turning more towards cyber currency, to Bitcoin, to Ethereum, and tools like that. So gold may have competition that for the last couple hundred years it did not face. And maybe with the Bitcoin and other coins increasing in value, maybe that increases the value of gold. Inflation hedges are lifting all boats. Currency replacements are lifting all boats. I don't know, but you could make a case for that. But so what do I think you should do? I can't share that with you. I do want to share a couple things. I can't share because I don't like, and I won't give financial advice on this channel. But what I can share with you is if you decide to invest in gold, I think it's dangerous to have gold at your house. And so I'd encourage you to find a good gold ETF. It makes owning gold a lot easier and frankly safer. And if one of my clients came to me and said, "Hey, Azul, I'm now retired, but back when I was working, I want to have 3% gold in my portfolio or 5% gold in my portfolio is part of a big picture." It's not a crazy plan. But I think making a big bet on anything can derail us. Remember, we only have to win once, and then the job is to protect that nest egg. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you did find this video helpful, I think you'll like this video here. Find this video here helpful as well, which is 8 things to stop doing in our 50s and 60s in order to enjoy our journey until we get to retire. Thanks for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.